Let's be real for a second. We all know software security is a huge deal, but actually doing it? Man, it can feel like total chaos. Your efforts feel kind of random, your teams aren't on the same page, and you have no idea if you're even making progress. But what if there was a map to guide you out of that mess?
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the security puzzle itself. Then, we'll introduce our map, the SAMM framework. After that, we'll break down how to actually read that map. And finally, we'll talk about how you can chart your own course on the journey to security maturity.
All right, let's dive right in. Section 1, the software security puzzle. Why is this such a common struggle for so many organizations?
I mean, this is a million-dollar question, right? If you work on software, this probably sounds painfully familiar. You're spending money, you've got people working on security, but it just doesn't feel like it's all adding up to one clear strategy.
And this is what that chaos actually looks like in practice. You've got teams pulling in totally different directions. You might be overspending on one tool while a massive gap sits wide open somewhere else. And without a unified plan, how can you possibly measure progress? You're basically just flying blind. So how do we bring some order to all that chaos? Well, this is where our map comes in. Let's introduce the Open Web Application Security Project's SAMM framework. It's designed to be the guide for your entire security journey. SAMM stands for Software Assurance Maturity Model. And the most important thing to know about it is this. It is not some rigid, one-size-fits-all checklist. Nope, it's a flexible framework that helps you build a security strategy that's tailored to your organization's specific risks. And you can see that mission right in their own words. They want to provide an effective and, this is the really critical part, a measurable way for any organization, whether you're a tiny startup or a huge enterprise, to actually analyze and improve its security. So what makes it so powerful? Well, it all boils down to these three core principles. First, it's measurable. It uses defined maturity levels so you always know exactly where you stand. Second, it's actionable. It gives you a crystal clear path to get better. And third, it's versatile. It doesn't care what tech you use or what your process is. It's designed to work with the way you already build software. Okay, so we get the why. Now let's dig into the how. We're going to deconstruct the model itself to see how it's all put together. Think of this part as learning how to read the map. At the very top, the big picture level, the model is built on 5 core business functions. These are really the pillars that support your whole software lifecycle. You've got governance, design, implementation, verification, and operations. Now, under each of those 5 functions, there are 3 specific security practices. So that gives us 15 in total. These are the key areas of activity, things like threat assessment or secure build. And we can get even more granular from there. Each of those 15 practices is split into 2 streams. Think of them like parallel paths within a single practice. They cover different but related goals. So for instance, one stream might be about creating a security policy, while the other is all about enforcing it. And finally, how do we actually track our progress in all this? With 3 maturity levels. Level 1 is basically where you're just starting out, maybe doing things on an ad hoc basis. Level 3, on the other hand, means you have a deeply integrated, optimized, and well-oiled machine. So here's how that whole structure fits together in one big view. You can see those 5 business functions we talked about running down the left side, and for each one, you can see its 3 associated security practices. This grid gives you a complete high-level view of the entire software security landscape. Okay, let's zoom in for a second to really get what those streams are about. Let's take the strategy and metrics practice. It's split in 2. Stream A is all about creating the plan and getting everybody on board. Stream B is about measuring your results to see what's working and how you can improve. See? 2 parallel efforts, but they're both driving toward the same goal. Okay, so we understand the map structure, we know how to read the legend. Now for the fun part. How do you actually use it to plot your own course? Let's talk about the journey to maturity. The whole process is this really simple, repeatable 4-step cycle. First, you assess. You take an honest look at where you are right now. Second, you set a target, a realistic goal for where you want to be in, say, 6 or 12 months. Third, you build a roadmap, which are the concrete steps to get from here to there. And finally, you implement the plan. And this isn't a one-and-done thing. It's a cycle of continuous improvement. And this chart is a great example of what that assess step can look like. It gives you this clear visual snapshot of your strengths and weaknesses. So for this sample company, you can see they're doing pretty good at level 2 for strategy and secure build, but for threat assessment, they're just getting started at level 1. That immediately tells them where they need to focus their energy next. So, why does this approach work so well? Because it's both prescriptive and flexible. It gives you that clear path forward, but, and this might be the most important part, it recognizes that the goal isn't to be level 3 in everything. Your little low-risk internal app doesn't need the same level of security as a global payment platform, right? SAMM lets you set targets that actually make sense for your business and your level of risk. So here's the bottom line. SAMM cuts through all that chaos we talked about at the beginning. It gives you a flexible, a measurable, and an actionable roadmap to build a security program that is tailored specifically for your organization. It's not a rulebook. It's a strategic framework for finally getting security right. This framework gives you the map. It gives you the compass. Really, everything you need to get started. So the only question left to ask yourself is, what's the next step on your security journey?